Hey everybody, Sue's here from Revelation Quilts. Today I thought I'd do a quick video just to show you how I organize my fabric stash, my scraps especially. So nobody likes going into your shelf looking for a fat quarter and then pulling out a fat quarter and then realizing there's a big corner cut out of your fat quarter, so it's not actually a full fat quarter. Well, I'm going to show you what I did to take care of that problem. So stay tuned and I'll show you exactly how it worked for me. So here's the method that I used. When I pulled out a fat quarter, if it was smaller than a fat quarter, it would get cut up into various sizes. So I figured out the sizes that I use most, and I cut that fat quarter down into those usable sizes. So anything that was a fat quarter or larger, I just kept where it is. If it's a fat quarter, I have a special place in this bookshelf for all of my fat quarters, and then they are lined up and down. And I don't organize my fabric according to color, and I know a lot of people do, but I found that I don't have the space for all these different colors. And the second thing is that if I want a color, I can just look on my shelf and pick out the colors that I'm looking for. So this whole way that I organize my fabric, really, I don't organize anything by color. There is one thing that I separate into lights and darks. So if it's smaller than a fat quarter, or if it's a fat quarter that has a corner cut out of it like that, the first thing that I will do is I will see how many 10-inch squares I can get out of that. So I have an entire drawer that is full of 10-inch squares that I have cut from my stash. And so this drawer is full, and this drawer belongs to a rolling cart that I bought. The second size that I will use, sometimes out of a fat quarter you can get 1-inch square, but then there's still some left over, one 10-inch square, and there's still some left over. The next thing I'll do is I will use 5-inch squares. So again, I have a whole bin full of 5-inch squares that I have cut from my stash. The next size down is 3-inch squares. So I've got a whole, well, a half a bin full of 3-inch squares. It's quite thick. There's a lot of 3-inch squares in there. I don't use 3-inch squares as much, but if you make half square triangles out of 3-inch squares, they end up being 2.5-inch half square triangles. So that's why I chose 3-inch squares. The next size down is 2.5-inch squares, and then 2-inch squares. And then my smallest size that I cut my squares into is 1.5 inches, because I am working on a postage stamp quilt. So I don't want to throw away anything that is 1.5 inches. Anything that's smaller than 1.5 inches, I throw in the garbage. Now I know that some people will save those, but I just don't have the quilting space or the space in my studio for that. And when I accumulate a huge, like let's say a kitchen size garbage bag full of those, I will sell it on Marketplace, Facebook Marketplace, for like $1 or $2. And so somebody always comes to buy my scraps because it's $1 or $2, and they love making the tiny little scrap quilts. And so the other thing that I cut is I cut strips. So if I cut 3 sizes in strips. One is 2.5 inches, the other is 2 inches, and then the 1 inch. Now the 1-inch strips are awesome for string quilts, and I have a few tutorials on string quilts, and if you wanted to see that, I can put a link up for it. 2.5-inch strips are great for scrappy bindings, and that works out really well. When I am done with a project, I will put all the scraps from that project in a little basket that's by my sewing machine. And then when I'm finished with that project, immediately I'll take all of those scraps and cut them down into these usable sizes. And so I have literally a bin for each usable size. So this is my bin of 2.5-inch strips. I've got another one for the 2-inch strips and another one for the 1-inch strips, as you can see. The only thing I separate into lights and darks are my 1.5-inch squares. And so I have a little baggie of the darks and a little baggie of the lights, because in between projects, I'll put together a postage stamp square. So it just takes me, I don't know, 15 minutes to put that together. And so eventually I will have a big old postage stamp quilt, which is one of my quilting bucket list goals. So the other thing that goes into my stash organization is leftover charm pack squares. Those go in my 5-inch bin. Any leftover jelly roll squares goes into my 2.5-inch square bin. And then the last thing, of course, I've always got leftovers for a layer cake. So I've got a bunch of layer cake squares in here too. So that's really nice. To go from unorganized to organized took me about 3 weeks. And that was just working on it for an hour or two every day. It really went pretty fast. And then in my shelf is where I keep all my yardage. And I've got my yardage down one column of my shelf. I've got this big 72-inch wide IKEA shelf that just takes up one whole wall. So I've got my yardage and my fat quarters here, along with some pattern books and jelly rolls and things like that. So that is how I organize my stash. And I'd love to hear how you organize yours, or maybe you don't organize yours, but mine came to a place where I really needed to organize it because I hate being unorganized when I work. So let me know what you do, and let me know if you organize yours by color or not. Like I said, I don't. I just like being able to go in and go through what I have and pick the color. So this is Suze from Revelation Quilts signing off. Thank you so much for the support you have given me for this channel. So please like, share, and subscribe. Signing off.